walk through this wicked world, searching for light in the darkness of insanity.
Hey, welcome back to Tech Badger Radio. We're having a conversation here with Rabbi Melissa Weintraub, and Melissa has done work with bringing together people around the conflict that's has been for at least my entire lifetime. I'm 45, and I feel like I've been hearing about this my whole life, that there's this conflict. And Melissa has tried to bring together people around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, in a way that can bring about connection and personal trust, hoping and trusting that will bring about some kind of peace in the Middle East. And she's going to be in town on Wednesday, November 2nd, here in the Twin Cities, with a free presentation called Waging Peace in the Context of Violent Conflict. So, Rabbi, thanks again for being with us.
My pleasure.
Hey, can we call you Missy? Is that all right?
I've never loved being called Missy, but
Okay.
if you want to call me Melissa, you don't need no rabbis needed.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll go away now.
No. That's why he's just the sidekick. Melissa, talk to us about what it is that you do. When you go to the Facebook page of Encounter, which is the organization that you help to found to bring together people in contact with one another in places where they might not otherwise have a chance to meet each other. It's this great. You get this great sense that there's people who are different from one another that are meeting each other and are excited about that. Is that what you're up to? I mean, is that a big part of the plan that you all are unfolding?
Absolutely. And it's not only about bringing Jews and Palestinians together face-to-face. It's also about bringing together people from the right and left, from religious and secular backgrounds, who have also dehumanized and dismissed each other. It's all about who are those people that most trouble us, that most unsettle us, whose perspectives on the world we do not understand, and bringing people into face-to-face contact so that they understand each other's real, genuine integrity and concerns and needs in a way that whatever boxes and caricatures we have of each other across all kinds of political divides, we haven't really engaged each other's humanity.
And you've been doing this for a long time. In your bio, it says you've been engaged in this kind of activity for 16 years. So you started this as a young adult and have spent your adulthood in this endeavor.
Yeah, well, 16 years ago, I was more apprenticing other people who were doing this work, but Encounter we founded while I was in rabbinical school in 2005. And now we are about 1,300 Jewish participants, and thousands of Palestinians have been involved as well.
And are you hopeful? Are you hopeful that that something's going to change, that we're not just going to stay in the same cycle of fear and separation that has characterized this conflict for so long?
Well, one of the things I love about my work is I get to live on the front lines of my hope. I get to live inside my hope and see it manifest, because I get to see people shift and transform actually very quickly, and see that when we're closed to each other, we don't want to be, right? You just have to create the right conditions. And it sounds horribly naive, but if you actually create the right conditions, if people are not in a context of shame and dismissal and castigation, they really actually want to open to each other with curiosity and openness to each other's perspectives, and that shifts their politics. It shifts their policy orientations. It makes them more constructive and creative and smart in all kinds of ways. And if you get the right people in the room, then that can have systemic effect and not just interpersonal effect. So I get to be hopeful because of what I do, and I know we're up against a lot. It's daunting, but I believe that if we do what we're doing and are joined by people who are trying to transform the Palestinian and Israeli publics and the broader American public, for that matter, that the situation can be moved.
In the second hour of our radio show today, we're going to interview a guy who's written a book called Monsters in America, and the subtitle is Our Historical Obsession with the Hideous and the Haunting. And he's written this book where he tries to say that in our culture, there's always a need for monsters. and monsters help us tell a story of how we can survive in the world that we live in. And so he says that's why we have, that's why there's witch trials and serial killers and vampire movies and zombie movies and fear of Loch Ness monsters and all these things, that they actually help us come to grips with these fears that we have, and we need these monster stories to help us overcome our fears. And I was thinking about the connection of that idea with what the conflict in Palestine and Israel seems to be. And I wonder your thoughts on this idea that this conflict has been going on so long. Do these two groups need each other to be in conflict so they know how to survive? Like, has it gotten to the point where if you solve the problem, that's going to create, a lack of identity about who you push up against? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think so. There's one of the reasons that we do the work that we do and the way that we do it, which means we're as focused on internal conflict resolution work within the Palestinian society and within Jewish, Israeli, and American Jewish communities.
Oh, interesting.
Is because we know that first of all, that those levels need to kind of coincide with resolving the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. They're intimately linked. And we won't be able to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict without internal work. And also, we want to know what the day after resolving the conflict is going to look like. And unless there's conflict transformation in the broader Palestinian public and Israeli publics, then that day is not going to look very pretty. Mm-hmm. But our work is all about trying to keep there from needing to be any monster.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Any way in which we have a capital O oppressor, right? That's
right.
The engine of our rage. That's what mobilizes us.
Right.
But we're sort of turning that logic on its head and saying no one needs to be dehumanized or dismissed for us to be able to get our needs met.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's such great work that you're doing. It's so important for the work that you're doing and that other people do like this. And there's times where I wonder, boy, is there something inside of our human sensibility that just needs that kind of enemy and oppressor and monster out there? Because we just seem to recycle these narratives over and over. It does make me wonder if we're not sort of having to work a little bit against some of our own evolutionary or cultural development patterns. Do you feel that sometimes, that like, man, how can we just keep as a human race struggling with these same issues sort of over and over?
Yeah, I think that we're wired for fight or flight in a way. When we, as soon as we get threatened, we start to see whatever we see as threatening us as a threat or danger only, and we see it in one-dimensional terms. We see it in holistic terms, and then it's just out to get us. We don't want to be in that state. I mean, this is what drives my work. When we're in that state, we're feeling out of control and overwhelmed. I mean, even on the interpersonal level, when we've done that to another human being, that's not, fun to see another person that way. And as soon as the heart opens to that person, there's a huge, just immense relief to realize that that person isn't just out to get us, that they're a complex, struggling person just like us with their own integrity and needs and confusion. And people just love being opened again to what they were close to, and I love facilitating that process.
So people who will come to your presentation on Wednesday or start following you from here on what you're doing, what are options for your sort of ordinary person who maybe can't get on an airplane and go and meet people in Palestine or Israel and aren't going to be functioning inside of the government? What is there for sort of us ordinary people to do about this conflict?
Us non-geniuses.
Yeah, for the for the regular folks among us.
Talk to anyone that you're afraid to talk to, that you don't usually talk to. Anyone who's outside of your kind of your bubble, your self-affirming nucleus, and we're all in them. We're all in little pockets of our little enclaves of people who think just like us. There's huge political divides in this country between red and blue, between religious and secular, on all kinds of levels, and it's paralyzing us. And our work is all about encouraging people to step outside of their comfort zones and their complacency and try to engage with people who aren't their natural allies, and have their thinking and their decision-making informed by learning across those political lines. And in relation to this conflict in particular, there are so many people who are in solidarity with one side or the other and have dehumanized if they're in solidarity with Palestinians, they've never sat down with Israeli Jews who've confronted wrongful and grievous loss, and if they're in solidarity with Israelis, they've never sat down with Palestinians. So whoever it is that you don't know and understand, seek them out.
Yeah, inside the Christian tradition, there's this call to love your enemies and to bless those who persecute you, right? That kind of thing. That sounds like some of what you're talking about, that you get to know the person who you feel is your enemy or has declared you to be their enemy, and that somehow there's transformation that happens inside of that new relationship.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we're not talking necessarily about, everyone just rides off into the sunset loving
Right.
each other.
Yeah.
But we're talking about, at the very least, coming to understand what that other person's point of view is.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself is always transformative if one hasn't encountered that humanity and that point of view before.
And I'd imagine your group is advocating to not just minimize the difference by saying, look, we're all the same on the really important issues, so don't worry about how we're different. You're actually saying your differences matter, and you can find something very life-giving and interesting and intriguing inside those differences.
Exactly.
So don't underplay the differences.
Exactly. Yeah, we say that our differences are actually a signpost to what matters most to us.
Mm-hmm.
And insofar as we think differently about a situation, that means we actually need to go forward. Just like evolution has, it adapts in lots of different ways. And when we're confronting a really entrenched problem, we need lots of different ways of responding to it to have adaptive responses. And we need all the wisdom in the room that we can get. And right now we're shutting it down because we have so much fear and dismissal across political lines.
So it sounds like for people who wanted to join you for the Waging Peace in the Context of Violent Conflict presentation this Wednesday, that it's actually could be beneficial for people for whom this Palestinian-Israeli conflict isn't their main conflict that they're experiencing in their lives, but that you're actually going to be talking about a bigger set of issues that play itself out here. Is that right?
I'm going to be absolutely. I'm going to be talking more broadly on Wednesday night about the ways that we can harness religion as a force for peacemaking, for conflict de-escalation in the world, rather than for conflict escalation. Religion's been a factor, a cause, even a driving force in relation to a lot of the world's violence, and I'm going to be talking about what we can do as religious people, Christians, Muslims, Jews, to channel our traditions towards constructive ends.
Well, that's fantastic. Folks, that's Rabbi Melissa Weintraub. She's going to be presenting at the University of St. Thomas at the J. Phillips Center for Interfaith Learning on Wednesday, November 2nd. You can go to the Doug Pagitt Radio page on Facebook, or you can go to stthomas.edu, or I guess just Google Rabbi Melissa Weintraub and find this information. Melissa, thanks a lot for being on the show. Congratulations on your new marriage.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Yeah, right on. Okay. Hey, folks, stick with us here. We have the Cripes that come on. You got to be kidding me, and then our Monster Bash at the new hour.